Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah.
Good.
So you've got your slides?
Yes.
Yeah. And are they the same as before, or are you gonna?
Nope, they're different. I sent you an email. Did you get it?
Oh, because we've been online. So yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Okay. Slightly different, but not entirely different, but just slightly. So,
Yeah.
but I have them,
Okay. Good.
and just making sure.
We're just taking a 10-minute break.
Okay.
But I can the students probably still online, so they can witness the setting up. I'm just opening up the slides now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. They're more or less very similar to before.
Yeah, I just changed the page, and there was a little bit more, but it's not so different, but just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I added a page at the end if they want to contact me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You're recording this, right?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
So
Can you send me a copy after?
yes, I will. Yeah. It'd be easier
Thanks.
than it's actually gonna be easier than when I set up before.
Yeah, it should look a little better, I'm sure.
Yeah. That was recorded as well.
Oh, awesome.
So if you mute your microphone.
Sorry about that. For some reason, I've got a little bit of a sniffle today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we took a 10-minute break, so I think we'll probably start around 10 past. Your background looks a bit red now. Reddish?
Well, I've got lights on.
Yeah.
Actually, I can.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Do you like better, the first one or the second one?
I think that one looks better. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I not a little bit kind of washed out on this one?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a bit, yeah. But when the red's on, you look very red. So
It's not a perfect world, is it?
yeah. Yeah, that's looking better. Yeah. Yeah. So the lights you've got, they you can't get more daylight on them. Okay.
Well, I could do daylight one tungsten.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then that side of my face is going to be one thing, and the other thing is the other.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I can do is I can crank this up, and this might help. Does that help at all, or no?
Because you actually look red, so or orangey. So
Okay. Well, I'll go back to this then.
yeah. I think if you want, you can get the change the color balance after, rather. But
Yeah,
if it's already red, then it's harder to get the balance, the white balance right. But if it's white, then you can shift it around a bit. I think it'd be easier to change colors.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm still experimenting with mine, as you can see.
All right, and then let's see to share. Share content. Okay.
I mean, if you want, I can share the slides, and then you just tell me when when to shift. Because I think if you share, you won't be able to see yourself. Whereas if
Sounds fine. Why don't you share?
yeah,
And then you can just drive the interview like you always do.
yeah. How's that? Can you see the share?
Hang on.
No, you won't be able to see it because I was using the wrong.
Now, if I do, okay, so I can see it now. And then you'll go to full screen. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Because what would happen if you, unless you if you upload them, yeah, I can upload them, can't I? Be easier. Yeah, be easier if I upload. Yeah, I think you look better than with the red.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can always adjust it afterwards, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's why we have two modes, right? So that you can make those adjustments. So that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Yeah. There you are.
Can you also monitor the chat for me?
Yeah. I'll watch the chat.
Because I'll get them to to engage that way as well, and then if you can help me to just let me know who's asking what or saying what, that would be useful.
Yeah. That's fine. So just waiting for Dr. Rama to return. Any of the students that are listening, as you know, I sent a message out yesterday for you to ask, have your questions ready. So you can use the chat function. I know some of you have bandwidth issues, so please use the chat function for any questions that you may have. I think what you're going to hear today is going to be very interesting for your future careers.
Man, don't build me up too much. Come on. Hey, those of you who are listening right now, can you just in the chat real quick, can you type in where you are watching from, either a city or city and country? Go ahead and throw that in there right now. I'd like to see where you all are, since I can't necessarily see where all of you are. So just in the chat right now, just type in what country you are in right now, or you know, where you're watching from. Thanks. Oh, India, good. Singapore, awesome.
Great. As you're doing that, I would like to say hi. I'm Mr. Glenn. I'm Dr. Rama. Thank you very much for joining us. This year, I'm actually co-teaching this course with Mr. Neville. So it's really great to see you. The first time I saw you was like in the interview that you did with Mr. Neville. That was on Money FM, I think. Was it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sure.
Yeah. And I'm also based in Singapore at home, obviously, working from home. So to all our students here, we're very privileged to receive Mr. Glenn van Zutphen, who is a journalist. And remember, I think last week I played you a short excerpt of that interview with Mr. Neville that was carried out by Mr. Glenn with us today. And he's going to be enlightening us quite a bit about, entrepreneurship, and especially considering that one of your majors is journalism. Well, here we go. So thank you again, Mr. Glenn, for joining us. And yep, please go ahead, Neville, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. And Dr. Rahman, let me just say thank you. It's great to be with you and all the students, wherever you are. Awesome to be with you today. This whole distance learning, blended learning environment that we're in, I know is not exactly ideal. Neville and I have done this session that we're going to do today. We've done it twice before in person over the past 2 years, and I always enjoy getting to know you and engage with you in real life. Unfortunately, this is about as real life as we get these days. So at the end of this presentation are my contact details. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter, or we can connect on Twitter, whatever, please do so. I'd be happy to be in touch with you. And as Neville mentioned a short time ago, if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And then, of course, later on, you can ask them on camera if you'd like to as well. So I'm here for you guys today. We'll have a chat, but hopefully it'll spur some questions or some ideas from you. Neville, over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very pleased to have you back, Glenn. And I'd just like to, let the students know, I almost forgot where we met, but we met at Social Selling 2018. So, it's been 2 years now, because that was in September 2018. And one of the things that we stress on this course is about building your network, maintaining contacts, and having a positive attitude. And I remember when I saw you present, as you've done every time, you have a very positive attitude towards what you do, which is why I feel that the students can benefit a lot from you. So
well, thanks, Neville.
We'll move on now. Yeah. And so the first question is on your slides. It says, be confident, be credible. What's the thinking behind that?
Thanks. Again, great to be with all of you. Neville, as you pointed out about attitude, and one thing I have learned over nearly 30 years as being a journalist and doing broadcasting and being online with people is, quite honestly, sometimes all you have is your own attitude. that is sometimes the only thing that separates you from the wolves that are outside the door, barking and howling to get in and tear you apart. So that's the one thing we can all control. And those of you who are studying now, if you are still looking for your first job eventually, or maybe you've worked already a little bit, you've gone back to school, either way, the one thing you can control is how you view the world and how you interact with the world. And I have always found two things. One, a positive attitude goes way farther than a neutral or negative attitude. And as Neville just mentioned, networking is honestly, in this day and age, the key to success. And we all assume that you're going to get a good education, you're going to get a degree, you're going to have technical skills that you will have learned from your education. But once you get beyond that, everybody else, the playing field is very even, right? And those people that network hard in an honest and a proper way, a way that's authentic, those are the people that really get ahead. To your question, Neville, about be confident, be credible, and be concise, this is kind of a tagline that I like to use with my executive coaching business. And too often, the people that I work with, many of them want to learn how to communicate a little bit better than what they already know how to do. And these three words are really, I think, a great starting point for most people to have a better idea of how to be an effective communicator.
Yeah, so you mentioned your executive coaching. You haven't always been an executive coach. So here's an indication of your career progression towards being an executive coach. You were a journalist, or you trained as a journalist. Can you just tell us what your major was at university?
Sure. I went to the University of Southern California. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism. That was a long time ago, I have to say. I'm not ashamed to admit that this year I'm 56 years old. So some of you, that might be the age of your parents. I don't know. I hope not, but anyway, it's possible. And then just 5 years ago, I actually got my master's degree in digital media management when I was just about 50, actually. And so I needed and felt that it was important to understand what's happening in the digital landscape. So I went back to school and got my degree in my master's degree in digital media management, which basically, if you think about the role of a chief digital officer, those are the kinds of skills, everything from understanding what the tools are that are necessary to how to put digital plans together and how to execute, how to work with coders and other vendors that might be putting digital stuff together. But my whole career until about maybe 10 years ago, but maybe a little bit more, about 12 years ago, I was a full-time international journalist working with CNN International, working with CNBC Asia, the business news network, ABC News out of the US, USA Today newspaper out of the US. So my life has been in journalism. And then, as I mentioned, not too many years ago, I left full-time daily journalism and I started consulting, doing executive coaching in communication.
Why did you do that? What changes had you seen that made you feel you needed to make that move?
Well, I actually got tired of not making a decent living, and I wanted to make some more money, and consulting is the way to do that. Seriously, well, part of that is serious, but no, really, the industry of journalism has changed a lot in the last 20, 25 years. It has become a much more corporate endeavor, as many of you may know. A lot of the smaller players bought up by bigger media conglomerates. The face and the nature of journalism has changed quite a bit. Of course, in recent years, especially since Donald Trump's been around, this idea of calling everybody fake news, no matter how credible they are, has taken hold. So it's a challenging environment. I still have a lot of journalist friends. I do some journalism on the side myself. I have a radio show. I write articles, but it's just not my full-time thing anymore. And I found that it's, for me, at this stage of my life, it's much more useful to be on the other side to help teach not only C-suite leaders, corporate leaders, how to communicate better, but also I work with a lot of journalists as well and help them to understand how they can be more impactful and effective as professional journalists. So I enjoy this phase of my life. I got to tell you, when I was at CNN, for example, we would work nights and weekends and holidays, and the news never stops, obviously. So this is a much more sane lifestyle. And since I left journalism, I got married, have 2 kids, so it's a better family environment as well.
So in the picture there, you've got an aircraft carrier, and was that a news story?
Yeah, I've been on. I've had the great fortune to. I've now been on 5 or 6 aircraft carriers. I have landed and taken off of 2 of them, doing what they call the tail hook, which is you land on the deck and you go from 120 miles an hour to 0 in about 2 seconds. So you really feel it, right? The G forces, and then you do the catapult shot off the deck, and you go from 0 to 120 miles an hour again in about 2 seconds. This particular picture was me on the deck of the USS Independence. I had flown into that to do a story for, at that time, ABC News. We were off the coast of Japan. It was about 25 years ago. But I have been on aircraft carriers as recently as 2-3 years ago, doing stories about what the military was up to. And that's just one of the many things I've done. I tell you, as you are looking for a field in journalism, a career in journalism, one of the things that's always been the most interesting to me is, depending on what turns you on, what subject matter, or what field turns you on, you have the chance to be out, to be an observer, to be a person who really is paid to ask questions about something that you might already be interested in. And that to me was really interesting. Now, I spent almost all my career as an international journalist, living in Japan, living in Switzerland, living in Hong Kong, and now, of course, living in Singapore for the past 15 years. And that's what I really enjoyed. I enjoyed being on the road, being on the move, and having a chance to be on an aircraft carrier one day, having a chance to be in corporate settings another day, being at concerts, being at sporting events, whatever it was that was happening that I had to cover that day. But it just depends what turns you on. If you like finance, do that. If you like sports, or if you like culture, music, whatever it is, just jump in and do it.
Yeah. The reason why I'm interested in that picture is because one of the things that I've found along my journey is that if you can document what you've done in your career, then when you need to do a presentation like this, you're able to supply the information in a visual form. Like this, the last 3 weeks, we've been doing video presentations. And one of the things that has come out of those presentations is that the videos tend to lack visual information. So, you're able, by you being able to show visually what's happening in your career, that's something that you can use in a positive way as you move forward. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, at the end of the day, as a journalist, whether you're a print journalist or a radio journalist or a TV journalist or a new media online journalist, your whole mission is to show images, whether they're visual images or verbal images or images on the paper, the way you write, to people that will be interested in knowing information about that particular story, whatever it is. So I think first and foremost, as you are beginning a career in journalism or communication, because if you're a PR person, if you're going that direction, this also is appropriate. But you got to think first about the audience, right? That is always your first, should be your first consideration. When you are thinking about putting a story together or pitching a journalist on a story, if you're in the public relations side, you got to think about what the audience is going to need to know, want to know, find interesting about what it is you have to say. So for example, if you are in Singapore, there are a number of places, for example, an area called Arab Street. Those of you who live here know it well. There's a few back alley barbers left, right, in Arab Street, in the Arab Street area in Kampong Glam. And to go and do a story on these old-time barbers who literally their barbershop is in an alley, it's open air, it is covered, but other than that, it's not like in a building, right? It's between buildings. That's a beautiful story and so visual. the idea of either images or painting images with your writing of how they do their job and what their environment is like, everything from the heat and the rain and the sunshine and the whatever to customers who are sitting outside. So easy stories, right, like that. But you always have to think about who your audience is going to be and what they will find interesting about a given story. And you have to make some editorial choices about what you cover in that story, what will be interesting to them, and what you leave on the side because it might not be interesting.
You mentioned that you work with journalists at present. So when you started your career, you would have been working with CNN, which is a multinational news agency, and working now as an independent, as almost a freelancer, although you have your own media company. What changes has that brought about for you, and how can that be related to students graduating today?
Sorry, changes in terms of what, Neville?
Well, I think most of our students won't be working for news organizations. They'll probably find that they have to kickstart their own careers as a freelancer independently. So your experience of the change, your experience of doing your master's in the digital world, how has that experience now for somebody starting out as a journalist or in PR that needs to kickstart their career?
Simply, if you want to be a writer, write. Start writing now. Get your blog. If you don't have a blog, kickstart it. If you do have a blog, put it into hyperspeed, right? Write every day. Write simple topics. It can be 250 words or it can be 500 words, but write every day, write often, write on a diversity of topics or the topic that you find personally interesting. Get content, generate content, whether it's on a blog or wherever. If you are interested in the more visual side of things and want to do video, or you want to do sound, do radio, just get out there and just do stories. Even again, if it's a 90-second story or a 120-second story, it's okay. But just get out there and start practicing. And not only practice, but post. Not only post, but ask people for opinions. Do a video story on something that's in your neighborhood, in your town, in your country, and send it to Neville, send it to me. Ask for opinions on it. Say, hey, I did this story the other day on this topic. I thought it was really interesting. What do you think of how I covered it? As a student, you have absolute license to do things any way you want, first of all, and secondly, to be good at it or to be horrible at it, and third, to ask people that are in the industry currently, whatever industry you want to be in, to give you feedback. And believe me, I don't know anybody who is in either a journalist or a comms or PR person or a marketing person or a freelancer. I don't know anybody that wouldn't freely give you advice if you asked for it, right? So just get out there and do, because that's how you're going to get better. And that's what's going to separate you from everybody else when graduation day comes and you've got to go talk to a potential employer, and you can say, hey, take a look at my blog, or take a look at my website that I've done, or look at these 10 things I've posted on LinkedIn over the past year. You doing that versus somebody else who hasn't done that, guess who they're going to look at more closely, right? It's going to be you all day long. Same with internships, same with other pre-professional job opportunities that you might have. But don't be afraid to take a chance and try whatever it is you want to try. Don't be afraid to fail. Always ask for feedback from people. Don't argue about it, just receive it, take it on board, and change your game if you need to, make it better.
So as a business person, what are the biggest obstacles that you found when you started?
Yeah, I'm not a businessman. I'm a journalist, right? And I would say this has been the biggest challenge of my career was, there have been times in my journalistic career when I've been a freelancer. So I've had to go out and get business, and then I've had to invoice people and set up a company and do all that sort of stuff. Well, it's not brain surgery. It can be done, but it's not what I'm good at. It's not what I enjoy doing, right? And but having some basic business sense is a good thing. You can do whatever it is you want to do and that you love to do, but at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to need to pay bills. Now, maybe initially you're living with your family. That's cool. They can cover you on a lot of stuff. But at some point, you're going to have to step up to the plate and start making some money and figuring out how to live off of what you earn. For most people these days, freelancing is not going to do it. Okay, you might get $50, $100 an article or a video for what you're doing. Even CNN, if you go out and freelance for CNN International for a day to cover a story, that's a 12-hour day, you might get 250 US, maybe. Their day rate is less than $300 a day, right? So, if you live in a place like Singapore, or you live in a busy city anywhere on the planet, how the heck do you survive, paying rent and paying bills, or if you have a wife or kids or whatever? It's impossible. So you have to figure out pretty quickly where your niche is, how you can scale that work that you do and be very successful at it and get to a point where you can either charge more money for it or get into an organization that will pay you to cover those topics. It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
And what are the chances of finding the job in the media industry?
Hey, there's always jobs that need to be filled. And I'll tell you, when I graduated from university in 1986, right? And people were saying that, oh, the job market is so tough. There's this, there's that. Like, the job market is always tough. But you know what? If you've taken the time to learn your subject, if you've maybe had an internship, which is always a great way to get some real world experience and some contacts, and if you've taken a moment to reach out to people in the industry, let's say these days, especially LinkedIn, you all should have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, set one up today and, hit me. I'll be your first contact. I'll be happy to be a contact for you. Hit Neville, hit Dr. Rama, hit everybody you know. Start building your network. But more than that, start posting. Start being a part of the conversation, right? Whatever it is you're interested in. Whether you're sharing articles, whether you're writing your own articles or doing blog posts, doesn't really matter. Get in there, share, start developing a voice, start developing contacts. And the day you graduate from school or before that, you will have already had some contacts available that can show you, where the jobs are available and what's possible. Now, look, you're not going to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year your first job out of school. Your first job is going to be low paying, and that's just the way it is. So get over yourself, okay? That's, unless you happen to be really lucky and your parents own the company that you're going to work for and they want to give you some stupid inflated salary. But, most of us start at a very low level, but that's just the way it is. So get out there, suck it up, do the work, and but most importantly, be part of networking and building your own network even before you graduate. That's really, really important. But there are jobs out there. There are jobs out there.
So we're seeing you.
Yes. Sorry, Neville, can I just say one thing? So you'll see a slide in a minute. I do a radio show on the weekend, and just on that point. And for the past 5-6 months, I've had an intern from NTU, Nanyang Technological University here in Singapore. Great guy, and he's in his last year. And I will tell you this right now, because of the experience I had with him, if I had a job right now for him, I would hire him in a minute. He is super smart, super clever, really knows how to get stuff done and be proactive. And because of that internship experience that I had with him, not only would I hire him if I had a job right now for him, which I don't, unfortunately, but I may in the next couple of months, but also I will be happy to recommend him on LinkedIn. If somebody contacts me and says, hey, what was your experience with him? I will say good things about him all day long, because he did a 6-month internship. I think I'm pretty sure it was for free at Money FM, and showed that he could do great work. I also told him to contact our mutual boss at Money FM and see if they have any openings. I think they do. I'm not sure if they'll hire him or not, but so that kind of experience is really invaluable. And it's not just that kind of maybe low-level work that you might do as an intern, but it's who's seeing you work. Conversely, I've had some other interns at many of them that I think were horrible. I would never recommend them because I've seen their work ethic, I've seen what they put out, I've seen that they're not really that interested or keen, eager. Again, back to the attitude thing, right? So it really makes a difference when you make those connections, even if it's a free internship.
Yeah, and I think the internship, one of the things that we mention on the course is the gift economy. So an internship is almost a gift to a company, but it, like you said, it allows you exposure. It allows people to see what your work ethic is like, and also gives you the opportunity to maybe even set up your own small business that can work with some of these larger companies if the opportunity doesn't present itself for a full-time job. So in the picture here, there's you training somebody. Is that a training session, or are you being interviewed, or can you just describe what's happening?
Sure, it's a coaching session. I was an executive, a high-level executive. I believe that was with an insurance company here in Singapore. We're doing some media training last year or the year before. I take these pictures all the time, so I'm not exactly sure when this one was taken. Yeah. But yeah, that was a typical kind of media studio setup that we did for her. It was a day-long session where she wanted to learn how to engage with the media and also other stakeholders, internal stakeholders as well, doing a town hall meeting and that sort of thing. And then toward the end of the afternoon, we sit down and we do a lot of on-camera back and forth to help her, get her messages out and to be comfortable on camera if she does any TV interviews. But also, whether or not it's a TV interview, it still is great practice for a print interview or for a radio interview, just to have her be questioned by somebody who is playing the role of a journalist. In this case, it was me, and that invaluable experience for her.
Yeah. So has that changed? Has the need for executives and senior members of companies, has that changed their role? Do they have to be more public facing?
As all of you can appreciate, if you're watching this now, our world is very much online. Our world is all about thought leadership development. If you are not putting yourself out there as an executive, if you're not putting yourself out there on different social media platforms, speaking at conferences, etc., doing media interviews, you basically disappear from view, right? And there are plenty of other executives out there that are willing to step up and are capable and are currently stepping up into the spotlight to be subject matter experts. So it is absolutely, in my opinion, imperative that an executive that wants to have their company be seen as a leader, but have themselves be seen as a leader, is out there, whether it's online, whether it is in traditional media or new media, and also speaking at conferences, doing keynote speaking, that sort of thing, has to happen.
What happens when somebody says they're shy? What do you tell them?
You know what? Even if you're shy, even if you're a very, very shy person, it's not about becoming somebody you're not. It's not about all of a sudden becoming outgoing and gregarious and the life of the party. That's not it. You can be a shy person and within your own sort of personality type still be very effective at communicating what you need to say. Now, some people, maybe not everybody wants to do have a YouTube channel and do Insta Live or Periscope on Twitter or whatever. Not everybody wants to do TV, and that's okay. TV is very useful, video is very useful, and gets a lot of hits. That's true. But there are other ways that people can also engage, right? Writing articles, posting things, even doing pre-recorded 60 or 90-second video. So there are lots of different ways that people can get their messages out within the structure of what's comfortable for them. Now, having said that, I work with executives all the time that are either not comfortable or not good at speaking publicly. And that's one thing, we over the course of a session, 2 sessions, 5 sessions, we can actually very much get them to a good place to become a good speaker and somebody who at least is somewhat comfortable with the medium. They might not be perfect, but at least they can get the job done.
Yeah. So here
Weekend mornings, 89.3 Money FM. Tune in.
Yeah.
And if you're not in Singapore, you can also get us on the free SPH radio app on the iStore or Google Play. And you can stream us from anywhere in the world. There's the commercial.
Yeah. So what impressed me when I had my interview was the fact that you were on your own and you managed the whole studio setup entirely on your own. I had a vision that you would be, you'd have people buzzing around you, assisting you, doing things for you, but you managed everything in a very, well, I would obviously a professional way, but it was so relaxed. How did you get that comfortable sitting behind the microphone and pushing all the buttons and taking me through the interview at the same time?
Multitasking is a great thing that I've learned over the course of my career. And I started actually in my first year of college. I had a college work-study program. So I was paid a little bit of money to work at a radio station in the town where I was studying. And then it was part of, like I say, part of my work-study program. So I'd been doing radio for 30 years, right? I love radio. Back in those days, we actually we used tape, right? Reel-to-reel tape recorders for interviews. We had to learn how to cut the tape and splice it. And I mean, it was crazy, right? Stuff like, we played records on record players, that kind of stuff. Because we didn't have any other choice, not because it was cool and retro to do it. So, you fast forward, I've been doing this now at Money FM for about 2 years. I've been doing it a year for my own show. And then before that, I was filling in for a friend that had this particular weekend show before I inherited it from him. And so it was really a chance for me to relearn what radio is about today. And as you would all imagine, it's all very much, online. It's all digital. There's no more tape. There's no more records. There's no more any of that. Everything is in a system, and you just have to know how to maneuver through that system. I do run the board, Neville, as you mentioned. So I run all the volume, all the, when we call people for phone interviews, which we've had to do exclusively now since COVID-19, we don't have any in-studio guests right now, and we won't for a number of more months. So I got to dial up people. We got to do the phone interviews. I've got to fade the mics in and out. I've got to advance to commercials or to public service announcements, to music. Got to come back. I've had to learn how to do all that stuff. It's not impossible to learn. It's just a skill. During the week on Money FM, they have producers. They have, each show would have 1, 2, or at least 2 producers. You got news writers. You got, a lot of people. It just so happens on the weekends, they honestly don't invest people resources, right? Part of that is they know I can do all the jobs. So I think they're kind of getting a good deal. They got one person doing 3 or 4 different jobs. So I write, for example, on Saturday or Sunday morning, I'm up at 5 a.m. I write the news, I write the weather, I write the sports, I look at what's happening online on the different news websites. I pull a 5 to 8 minute newscast together. Then I go into the studio around 8 a.m. I pre-record the news, I pre-record the weather, and then I check the traffic and blah, blah, blah. 9 a.m. I'm on air. At the top of the hour, there's news, weather, and sports of the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock hours, because my show is from 9 to 12 on Saturday and Sunday mornings. During the week, in fact, just this morning before I came on to talk with you, I was organizing some guests. I'm going to have the U.S. ambassador on this Sunday on my show. I've got, usually each day I've got between 3 and 4 guests on Saturday and 3 and 4 guests on Sunday. I've got another guest on Saturday. She's in Melbourne. She's going to do a phone interview with us about their lockdown. They just did another lockdown in Victoria State in Australia this week. I'm going to talk to her about what's happening there. So I book all the guests. I figure out everybody that's going to be on. Again, my contacts over the decades, I literally have people that were once friends or former colleagues. I can call them now and say, hey, could you come on my show? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So getting back to connections, right? It all makes sense. But back to your original point, Neville, yeah, I do it all myself. I have an intern generally that will help me put the interviews I do up on our podcast site. Money FM has a podcast site, and so at the end of each interview, that person will, physically go through the steps of throwing that on the podcast site, which is how you guys all listen to Neville's interview if you listen to it. Other than that, I do it all. I'm not particularly bothered by it. I kind of enjoy it. It's not a great paying job by any stretch of the imagination, and I still keep my consulting business going during the week. So I'm kind of working 7 days a week, generally speaking. Sometimes I take Mondays off a little bit. I go a little bit easy on Monday, maybe have the morning off. And usually by Monday afternoon, I'm back into doing something.
Yeah. So you mentioned the podcast. So what's happened since the lockdowns occurred? There's been an uptake in people now saying, I want to do a podcast. You're obviously, well, I assume you're at home. Did you have a home studio before, or is that something that you're putting together now?
Yeah, I'm home right now. Over the course of my working career, I kind of go back and forth between working at home and working at co-working spaces. 10, 11 years ago, I had a shop house office space in Tanjong Pagar here in Singapore. It just wasn't worth it because my consulting clients never came to me. I always went to them anyway. So what's the point in spending money? It was like $6,000 a month just to have a shop house to have an office in. Well, who cares, right? Nobody cares, especially these days, right? In the last few years, and especially since COVID-19, working out of your home is just fine. I'm in my home studio right now, so why not, right? You're right about the growth of podcasts, but as many of you out there may have known, podcasts have been popular now for probably about 10 years, maybe 8 years. They went up about 8 years ago, and they were very popular, and then they kind of diminished until about a year or 2 years ago when they became popular again. So we're kind of going through a resurgence in interest in them. To be honest with you, most of them die out. Because there's no money in it for most people, unless you are just a huge player. One of the podcasts that I really like is called The Daily, which is part of the New York Times organization, and they do a daily news podcast on a topic of the day, and they've got sponsors, and so they're making money. But most podcasts don't make any money, so at a certain point you got to decide for yourself. You may want to do a podcast, and I would encourage you all to explore that if it's interesting to you, especially on topics that you would like to do. But at some point you got to think, okay, so how am I going to make money off this? Typically these days, you can't get sponsorship or do anything until you've got about 20,000 downloads per episode. That's sort of the threshold these days, generally speaking. That's what an advertiser or a sponsor typically wants to see. They want to see that kind of engagement. So every podcast you put out, you've got to have a pretty good following before you can say to a company, hey, give me $10,000 a month, or give me $10,000 every 6 months to be my podcast sponsor. So the economics of doing a professional podcast are very difficult. Again, you might be the one person that has the most amazing idea ever for a podcast, and it takes off, and you become a gazillionaire. Who knows? But I would always encourage people to try different things. If you're going to be a communicator, if you're going to be a journalist, if you're going to be a PR or a marketing person, try these different things. Try them now. I mean, you can do them all for free. Like, it doesn't cost you anything other than time, which you probably have a fair amount of, let's be honest, if you budget your time properly. So try things. Lean on older people, executives, people in the news or communication business to give you insight, feedback, assistance in some way.
So this, what's it, 21st Century Outstanding Service Award, what was this for?
The East West Center is based in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's been around since the 1960s. It is an organization whose sole mission is to bridge East and West, and specifically bridge kind of North America with Asia. So the organization is based on the campus of the University of Hawaii in Honolulu, and they have teachers, they have courses, they have fellowships, they do all kinds of different programs. For example, they will take emerging leaders from Asian countries and put them through a 2 or 3 year program on how to be an effective leader, whether it could be in politics or in business. They go around the Asia Pacific region and they do studies on, let's say, Pacific Islanders, what's going on with Pacific Island culture, things like that. What's happening in China, or the latest information on North Korea. So they really, as an organization, they are really out there trying to find out what's going on and bridge East and West and create a place of understanding, dialogue, if you will. So I did a fellowship with them in 2002. It was a journalism fellowship, and that really started my experience with the East-West Center, and I've been a very fond advocate of everything they do over the years. Again, coming back to networking, coming back to meeting people who are interesting, people that you learn from, but also people that, at some point, let's be honest, could be a business contact or some other kind of contact. So I've been with them for years. So in a couple of years ago, I was nominated because I was part of the East-West Center alumni network here in Singapore, and I was nominated for the first ever 21st Century Outstanding Service Award, which is an award that is now given to a person in the East-West Center network of alumni who has worked hard to promote cross-cultural relationships and knowledge and understanding. So I'm very, very pleased, obviously, to get that award, and very honored to get that due to my years of working with the East-West Center, but also trying to bring East and West together. Interestingly, I just found, and you guys are the first group to hear this, I just found out that I was just voted onto the East-West Center Board of Directors last week. And so as a result of the work I've done, now I'll be on this higher level Board of Directors, which is another thing that as you get older and more progressed in your career, giving back, getting onto boards of directors, boards of governors, and playing at that kind of level, the people that you meet and the amount of giving back that you can do grows exponentially. And it keeps growing and growing. And I don't have any idea who I'm going to meet doing my board meetings. Our first board meeting is going to be a virtual one next Friday, a week from this Friday. I don't know who I'll meet or what that will lead to. Maybe it won't lead to anything. But at one point, I'll be able to do something, hopefully give back to the organization or to students or whatever. But at some point, there may be an interesting connection made with one of the other board members.
Yeah. We're getting near the end of the hour. I'm looking to check for any questions. I don't see any questions, so I must, encourage the students to either type your questions or put up your hand. I think we've got a question here. Hi, Glenn. I'm very keen on getting a job related to TV interviews or talk shows. How exactly should I start building up my portfolio?
RJ, thanks. Great question. And great. It's good that you have an idea of something that you would be interested in doing. I love interviews myself. I've conducted probably close to 3,000 news interviews over the course of my career. I love interviewing people. So good for you. A couple ways you can look at it. One, in wherever you are based, I'm not sure if you're here in Singapore or somewhere else, but wherever you are, look at what the interview TV shows are that are currently on in your town, in your city, in your country, and see if there is any way that they have an internship program. I would say do that first. You can easily Google who the executive producer is or who's in charge, or through LinkedIn, you can figure out who these people are and try to connect with them and offer your services. Say, hey, I'd love to do a 6-month internship or a 3-month internship. I'd like to learn more about the business. I'm interested in it. Get in there and see how they do it. See what that whole process looks like. Now, couple of things will happen. One, you'll realize pretty quickly if that's in fact what you're interested in doing when you see how it's actually done versus maybe the idea in your mind of what you think is being done. But secondly, you'll make contacts as well. That's one way of doing it. The other way to do it is put together your own talk show, right? I mean, why not? You can do it on Skype, you can do it on Zoom or whatever. Go online. A lot of people have done this themselves. That you can Google people that have done their own talk shows. They look pretty, pretty low standard, let's be honest. But so what? You're just going to get out there and have some fun. Do 10-minute or 15-minute interviews. Doesn't have to be an hour. In fact, it shouldn't be an hour. But do short and sharp interviews with people. Ask them questions about what they do and how they do it and why they do it. The 5 W's, right? Who, what, where, when, why, and then maybe how. And start posting them and just see what happens if you can't get an internship with somebody else. Practice, practice, practice. See if that works.
Okay.
To add on to what Mr. Glenn just told us, RNJ, remember already in the Bachelor of Communication program, in many courses, you are actually creating content already, either written content, but also, I mean, we do have courses like audio journalism or multi-platform journalism where you can actually develop audio-video content. So that's already a start to your portfolio. And to all of you, don't throw away your assignments. This is the beginning. Like, in so many courses, you do interviews in journalism courses, like, you do features and so on. And also you do like, audio video interviews or programs in these courses. So like many of our students have done before graduated, and that's what they did. They started by creating the portfolio from assessment done in the program, and that's a start. And then you slowly build up on that. Students will then have done things on their own, like what Mr. Glenn is saying. For instance, like, okay, just go online and create like, your own, setup, interview people for fun. Because at least then you have something to show. That's a very important thing here. And so thank you, Mr. Glenn, for your advice here. There's another question I can see here from Guanchun, Sherry. She's asking, what's your opinion about the multitasking and focusing on one thing? Which one you think is better?
Yep, thank you for doing that. And before I get into that answer, hey, Neville, excuse me, would you mind advancing to the last slide so it's got my contacts on there?
Yeah.
Just do that now, and then while I'm talking, if people want to take a screenshot of that or whatever, yeah, that one. There's a QR code that'll take you to my LinkedIn profile as well if you'd rather do it that way. All right, Guanchun, thank you for that question. Look, I've always been a multitasker. I'll be honest with you. I think it is great to focus on one thing if you're able to do so, but sometimes we all know, right? We got to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that to kind of survive. So one of the great things I think about being a student, being an intern, being new in a company or new in a business as you get your first jobs or as you're experimenting, like Dr. Rama said on some of the other courses on creating content, is that you can learn a lot of different skills, skills that will come in handy over time. I'm sure already all of you already are very adept at probably doing videos on your phone, whether it's your TikTok or other things that you do. Also knowing how to edit, knowing how to post, obviously, is second nature to you guys. So you already are very much multitaskers. But see, of those things that you know how to multitask, is one of those things of particular interest to you where you can do a deeper dive, where you can get depth of information and knowledge on that. Because many employers look for somebody who is a kind of subject matter expert or who does something better than anybody else. I mean, if you look at Nas Daily, right? You look at the videos that he does and how engaging they are. He's got a whole bunch of different things that he has learned how to do to make his product interesting. And any one of those individually would be a good thing to have, but the multitasking element of that has also worked out very well for him. So I think you can do a little bit of both, to be honest with you. You can go deep on certain things, but also keep your skills, keep always broadening your skills to see which of those skills you find most interesting and the best fit for you. Good question.
Okay, we got two more questions.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. I would like to add a couple of things there, Mr. Glenn. Yeah, you were wondering like what was like, where are people from here? It turns out this course, like, is varied. global or international this year and previous years as well. Currently, I think like almost half of our students with us today are actually from the People's Republic of China, and many of them are actually physically located there right now. And also, so they are being disclosed like online because of travel restrictions or whatever. And also, we have got some students from India, from Indonesia, also from Singapore. And to top all that, the three of us are actually all expatriates. We've been here for 15 years. I've been in Singapore for almost 10 years now. And Mr. Neville, I think, has been here for about 4 or 5 years or something like that. So a very sort of global bunch, as we may say. Now, we got a question, I can see that, from Rachel, or Richie Shu. What she asked, what are the main skills required for public relations work? Because during university in Singapore, can't intern, so what should I do to prepare? Yeah, that's an issue also, because if you're a foreign student, it's very difficult to get internship gigs in Singapore.
Yep. Sure.
However, you can get internship gigs like back in your own country. So that was a question specifically asking about skills required for public relations.
Rachel, good question, and I'm actually a little bit surprised to see that you can't do an internship. I'm not quite sure why, because I know PR firms in Singapore that do have interns, so I'm not quite sure if that's some kind of requirement at your school or whatever. But I know that a lot of PR firms do take on interns. So
yeah. If you're a foreign student, an international student, there's an issue about work permits.
Got it. Okay.
That's
so skills for PR. Writing is very important, right? Because at some point you're going to be writing, news releases or something like that. Critical thinking about what audiences want, and this is, I find every day, this is a problem with PR firms. In fact, tomorrow I'm running a webinar for a PR firm here on how to teach them to pitch stories to journalists, because it's a skill that so many PR firms really lack here. So thinking about writing, thinking about what's interesting news for a journalist or for their audience, those are kind of critical thinking skills. Communication skills, right? How do you communicate with people? Are you able to carry out a good conversation? Are you able to write emails to them? That sort of thing. So anything related to communication, verbal or written, I think is extremely important. You might be able to contact PR firms, and again, given your status, I know you can't work for them. Maybe they would allow you to volunteer at a PR event that they're doing. PR companies are always looking for volunteers to help them at a big event. So you might get some experience and some contacts by doing that, not as an intern, but as a community volunteer. So that is an option. I wouldn't give up on trying to connect with a PR firm in that regard.
Yeah, I would also add to that. We've had students again, because they were international students, it was difficult to get paid gigs in Singapore. But yeah, you can actually volunteer, because some of our lecturers who teach the PR courses, they've got their own companies, or they work with they have got their own firm. So there are opportunities there. Of course, it's going to be a non-paying gig, because they can't. Otherwise, you're going to need there's going to be a problem with the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore in particular. But it is possible. We've had students in the past, international students who were able to get some gigs, but they had to do it for free and get some experience and acquire some skills. And I would like to add to that, Rachel, that actually next week we have an event organized with the Institute of Public Relations of Singapore, which is going to be online, it's a webinar, and you're going to just attend, because you're actually automatically a member of the University of Newcastle student chapter of IPRS. So
nice.
That means you get invited. Yeah, we've been doing that for a few years now. So every student who enrolls in our program is a member. They get invited to gigs organized by IPRS, whether online now or previously face-to-face, to attend and network with your professionals and listen to talks and things like that. So Rachel, you take the opportunity to join us next week. You can find out more. You will receive the advertisement soon anyway. And actually, Marceline and Guangchong, who are like, in this very class, they can tell you a bit more about that, because they are working on that. So,
Dr. Ram,
okay, so
I was going to say, that's a
sorry.
great point. Professional organizations like IPRS is awesome. Those of you that are interested more in the journalism track, I know that the Foreign Correspondents Association of Singapore and the Singapore Press Club are always very willing to have students partake in some of their programs, maybe not all of them, but some of them for free. They don't charge you anything. Many of them have a student membership. Again, it's either free or very, very little money, but most of them are free. So you can really expand your contacts, or at least your knowledge base, by hanging out with the group that you hopefully want to be associated with someday. So definitely take the time to find out what those opportunities are. And I'm sure it's great to hear that through University of Newcastle you're already a member. So that's cool. That's like you're in. Very, very cool.
Yep, we set that up like about actually next week. We're going to renew the MOU, so that's part of the event. Next week is going to be a webinar whereby like the students themselves are we're going to have speakers from IPR and from the industry, and there's a topic, and you all attend for free online and get to ask questions. And we're actually going to renew the MOU between IPRS and the University of Newcastle. And we've been doing that for years. In fact, you were talking about the press club there. They had a gig, I think at the end of last year. Can't remember, at a hotel somewhere. It was jointly organized by IPRS and the press club or something like that. And yes, all these events, automatically our students, the student members for free. You don't have to pay anything. And you get to attend most of these events for free. They will get sent to all of you. So that's why do make an effort. Of course, now currently everything is online. There are webinars, so do attend. When you receive an invitation, do attend, and you can network, but also learn about the kind of skills you want to find out more about. Having said that, now we've got another question from Patricia. Hi, Mr. Glenn. How do you? That's more technical question. How do you manage the stress of tight deadlines, and also how would you handle a hostile or uncooperative interviewee? Very technical.
Yeah. Great questions as well. Stress and difficult people are going to be part of your life for the rest of your life. I'm sorry to say, but it's just going to happen. The stress part of it, look, it's like anything, you grow into it, right? You learn through good experiences and hard experiences how to deal with stress. Hopefully you're grounded in a way, whether it's in your own mind, your own personality, in your faith, whatever it is, in your family, that you're grounded in a way that, at the end of the day, when you've gotten through a stressful situation, you can learn how to sort of exhale a little bit and put something on the side. Meditation is a great way. You can get on Headspace or one of the meditation apps and kind of get rid of stress that way. So these are all, I think, coping mechanisms. Stress is absolutely a part of any kind of communications job, whether it's journalism, whether it's comms or PR or marketing. There are deadlines. There are hard deadlines. There are, people that you're dealing with that aren't always nice people. It's just life. So all I would say is that you will find your way through that, but at the same time, don't be afraid to reach out to external things that might help you, whether it's exercise or yoga or, like I said, family, faith, whatever it is, to get yourself through that. In terms of the interviewees, I always found that, being prepared is always the best remedy for difficult interviews. Doing research on a person, obviously the first step is Googling them, right, to see what comes up, see what kind of interviews they've done before, or maybe what kind of trouble they've gotten into, or what kind of good things they've done. So that is always very important when you're going to do an interview, because that kind of knowledge is power if they start to get a little bit difficult on you. If somebody starts pushing back on a question, you can say, hey, but 2 years ago you were doing this, or 3 years ago you were arrested for that. So my question is not unreasonable. My question is just, okay, what are you doing now, for example, something like that. So I think research is a good thing. When you're new in your career and you're doing interviews at an early stage, you tend to be less confident, right? And it goes without saying, you haven't done it very much. Now that I've done 3,000 interviews, I can walk into any situation and I'm okay with asking just about any question, and I'm not going to take any crap from anybody across the table from me. But that's because I've been doing this for 30 years. So, you know, you grow in that skill. But the smarter you can be, the more information you can have going into an interview, the better. Good luck.
Mr. Glenn, are you in the habit of sending your questions in advance to the subject being interviewed?
Absolutely not. Nope. Good international journalistic practice would dictate that you do not send questions in advance. And why do we do that? Because if you send a list of questions and follow that list of questions, you might as well have just done, they might as well have just done a newspaper interview, a print interview, a Q&A, and just get over it. It turns out to be a very boring interview. That's the first problem, because somebody ends up just reading their answers off a pre-produced sheet of questions and answers that you have given them. So it's boring. It's a boring interview for you. It's a boring interview if it's a radio or TV interview for your audience. And the challenge is then when you do a Q&A like that, as a journalist, as an interviewer, you don't listen as actively as you should. You should be asking a question about something, and then you should really be listening for that answer to hear what other topics are coming up, to hear what other little nuances of information are being told to you, and your follow-up question should play off of those things. So that's my first broad statement about questions. I never give free questions. What I will do, however, and I did it this morning when talking to the U.S. ambassador's comms person, I said, okay, these are the topics I want to talk about. I want to talk about COVID-19 in America. I want to talk about students again being let into or allowed to stay in the U.S. even if they're doing distance learning and not physical learning. This was a story that was important this week in the news. So there are 2 or 3 topics that I said I wanted to talk about, but I will not give a list of questions. And I'm sad to say that many of my colleagues in radio and TV, in print journalism, are still giving lists of questions. It's something that has been standard practice in Singapore across the decades. I think it's a terrible journalistic precedent and practice to adhere to, because it makes for boring interviews and it makes for predictable interviews, and it doesn't really get the news out.
Yeah, okay, all right, Mr. Glenn, I get that, but actually there's a reason for me to ask that question. Because, sure. I mean, yeah, let's say the context of let's call it Western journalism, that makes complete sense. But in the context of a non-Western context of journalism, that becomes an issue. I mean, before here, I was like working in Malaysia, and one of the things like I was teaching there was documentary filmmaking, which involved a lot of teaching students about interviewing techniques, and that can become quite tricky, because there's issues there or values there that for instance, especially if the person you're interviewing is of a high rank or high status, and you can't treat them like that, take them by surprise, because that is considered kind of impolite or things like that. That's why I was asking that. So in that context, very often we actually would have when I had students doing documentary productions, corporate documentaries or something that involve managers or sales organizations, they would actually ask questions to be sent to them in advance, interestingly. But,
yeah, I think if it's a documentary or something, I think there's some slightly different rules. I'm speaking more or less around a kind of a standard news interview. And I think, if somebody is a spokesperson for a company, a government, or whatever, they have a right to know what the topic is to make sure that they're the right spokesperson to answer those questions. But beyond that, they should know the topic well enough. They should be, practiced well enough and smart enough that, pretty much any reasonable question that comes, they should be able to handle it. Yeah. Yeah. The documentaries, you're right, it's a different animal.
Right. I've got another question from Arun J. So he's asking about building his portfolio. Would hosting college events and working for public speaking organizations benefit my portfolio since it's not exactly considered industry work experience?
Yes, absolutely. There's a great organization in Singapore called APSS, Asia Professional Speakers Singapore. I believe you can join that as an associate member. We are always doing, I've been a member now for a number of years, we are always doing events on public speaking. Again, public, communication, public speaking, these are all extremely valuable skills. Again, you're going to meet other people that are in communication business, that are used to doing a lot of speaking. And if you yourself want to host those events, I think it's fantastic. Everything you can do as a student right now to broaden your skills, to broaden your experience, to broaden your contact base, that is absolutely going to come back and be beneficial to you at some point. You don't know when, you don't know where, but I guarantee it will be useful. So yeah, host events, do public speaking, do all of it. Absolutely. Good for you.
Well, RNJ, since you're interested, the current committee of our University of Newcastle student chapter with IPRS, well, they're all going to be graduating, so we're going to need new committee members. And that's an opportunity, if you want, next year, because as like members of that particular organization, we're actually going to have to organize events with IPRS, which is what, like, some of your classmates are currently doing, and they are actually organizing entirely. The event is going to be held next week by webinar. IPRS and University of Newcastle will provide all the support. IPRS provides the speakers, and we provide the rest pretty much, and it works out. So that's an opportunity, RNJ. So when the time comes, I'll probably ask for new members for the University UN chapter of IPRS. All right. Okay, so no, I don't see any more questions, it seems. Mr. Neville, you still there?
Yes, yeah, we did. There were a couple more slides. Do you want to go through them? Do we have time? Or
actually, I need to move on, Neville. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I do have
okay.
But please, any of you that are watching this, please connect with me on LinkedIn or otherwise. If you have any further questions, just reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. It's been a great pleasure for me to talk with you today, and thanks for really good questions. Really good questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you very much.
Questions as well. They've been very useful.
Awesome. All right. I hope you all have a great day.
Yeah, and Aaron J's in India.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so.
All right. Thank you.
I'll speak to you another time, Glenn.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Neville. Thanks, Dr. Rama. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Contact slide again. So if anyone wants to get in touch with Glenn, here's his contact details. I suggest you get in touch with him so that you can continue building your network. If you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, I should suggest that you start one, as Glenn mentioned today. And he's also on Twitter and Instagram. So once again, thanks to Glenn for his presentation and his conversation today as a guest speaker.
Thanks to all of you. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.